Okay, and I'm the only one in the meeting. Oh, someone is waiting. 2 people are waiting to enter. 3 people are waiting to enter. So 4 people have entered the waiting room. 6 people, 7, so 8 people have entered the waiting room. What do I do to get them? Why do I have to do that? Am I gonna have to do that every time? So for all 19 students, every time I have to let them in one at a time? Okay, let me just admit all. You know what? It does say admit all. Let's just get them all in here. All right. Do you understand why I would have had several meeting IDs? I know I didn't put it that way. Okay. Okay. All right. I appreciate it. Okay. All right. That's it. I appreciate it. Thank you, Robert. Thank you for being patient with me. Okay. You too. Bye-bye. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, I'm so sorry. As you were calling my phone, which I gave you my cell phone number for that reason, I was on the line with support. Can everyone hear?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm so sorry. So you were calling my phone, everyone who was calling my phone, which I want you to do that if there's a problem. I was on the line with IT technical support. So bear with me just for a second here. Let's get started. I'm going to try and minimize this. No. Okay. I'm going to record this meeting. If you don't want to be recorded, turn off your camera and mute your phone. If anyone have a problem with being recorded? Okay.
No.
Okay. To share screen. So actually, before I share my screen, say a few things here. So my name is Mary Gessel. You can call me Professor Gessel or Miss Mary or something to that effect. You should, if you don't have my cell phone number, write it down. It's 952-201-3126. Since I'm an adjunct new faculty with HAC, I don't have an office number. That's the only number I have. So write it down and keep it on hand. Try to email me first if there's a problem. If there's a problem just getting into the meeting, like call me. But if there's other problems outside of class that you need help with, email me first, and then if I don't hear back from me in like 24 hours, give me a call. Let's see, what else can I say? I'm a fairly nice person. I'm sorry it took so long to get class started, but I am a fairly nice person. As far as I know, I've never intentionally hit or bit anybody. So let me know when there's a problem, and I will try to fix it, and I will try to fix the problem. If you hear my phone pinging all the time while we're on class right now, I'm going to leave my phone running. The reason I'm going to leave my phone ringing is so that people are having, if you're having problems getting into Zoom, people can still call me. Okay? So be patient with me as you see me looking at my phone and so forth, because it's probably a student. Bounce in and out. If you come to class any morning, just do it. Don't tell me you're here. Don't send me a message saying you're here. Just show up. I would prefer you show up late rather than not show up. So just come in and out if you need to. Let's look at the syllabus. And so that meeting ID, I don't know why, when I was talking with the IT technical support, that Zoom meeting right here, can you see my screen? Okay. That Zoom meeting ID right there, that's the one for our class. I'm gonna, if it may change before the end of the day, because as soon as we're done with class, I'm gonna be calling IT technical support to figure out why I have multiple meeting IDs for this class. But that's the one that we're working with right now. My office hours are 11:30 to 12:30 on Mondays and Wednesdays, or appointment. So if that doesn't work for you, tell me or call me. We'll figure something else out. Hack email, mcgessel@hack.edu.
When people turn off their mics, it's hard to hear you with their background noise.
Is someone having problems?
It's just hard to hear you if not everyone else is muted.
Hi. So do me a favor, mute your mics unless you're talking. If you're talking, go ahead and unmute your mic. I would prefer that you talk rather than don't talk, but just mute your mic when you know you're not talking at that moment. The book that we're using is Anatomy and Physiology, the Unity of Form and Function, 9th edition by Saladin. I will show you here in a minute, if you haven't gotten access to that ebook, how to get access to that ebook. I emailed out some instructions yesterday. I think you can get it at the bookstore, but you can also buy access to it, and you are going to need to buy the electronic version of the book, because some of the activities we're going to do this semester require that you have the electronic book. So to access the book, I'm going to try to show you an easier way to get into it. Bear with me before you try to use all this information to get into the book. Let me try to show you an easier way to get into it. A supplemental text, the visual and analogy guide to human anatomy and physiology, 4th edition. Some additional supplies. Communication. Learning outcomes. Use standard anatomical language to describe the anatomy and physiology of the system and its organs, of each system and its organs. Explain the principle of homeostasis and use feedback loops to control physiological systems within the body. Explain interrelationships among molecular, cellular, tissue, and organ functions in each system. Explain the complementary between anatomy and physiology at each organ system. Apply the knowledge of anatomy and physiology to the real-world health situations. And in lab, identify and describe the gross anatomy and histology of the body systems in this course. It might sound like a really daunting list right now, but by the end of the semester, I think you'll all be there. Methods of evaluation. So we're going to have some lecture exams. We're going to have some lab quests. The lab quests, they're similar to lab quizzes, but they're much bigger. That's why they're called quests. So, and I think we're going to have 5 throughout this semester. Extra credit. If you want to know about easy extra credit, keep a weekly schedule to show the time devoted to the study of anatomy and physiology, and go over it with me over your schedule during office hours. Okay? So what I want you to do is keep a journal log of how often you study anatomy and physiology, maybe for the first month. And then meet with me in my office hours. And let me see how you're doing. On this, every time, every week, or every other week that we finish a chapter, we're going to go through 10 chapters this semester. Every chapter, at the end of every chapter, we are going to have a quiz online. The first one is set up online. Actually, yours is not set up. I'll get it set up today. Go in and take that. It's a 15-point quiz. You have 2 attempts to get the highest score you can. You have 2 minutes per question. So 30 minutes per attempt, 15 questions. It'll either be multiple choice, true or false, or multi choice answers. So there may be more than one correct answer, and the question will tell you accordingly. See here, 3 exams. We're going to have 3 case studies. These smart book reading assignments. This is how you're going to access the textbook the first time. If you haven't gone on there yet, let me show you how to do it. These are assignments that it's 10 points each, and it's did you do it or did you not? You have, I think, if I remember right, and I think the deadline is on each one of them, you have about 2 weeks to do this. So starting today until, I think, 2 weeks from today, or 2 weeks from yesterday, I'll have to look. 2 weeks from yesterday, you have 2 weeks to complete this. It's trying to get you to read the book and answer some related questions. It's not scored, it's scored did you do it or did you not. So an easy 10 points. If you do all of these, if you look here, there's 10 of them worth 100 points at the end of the semester. If you look, one exam is 100 points each. So if you do all of these smart book assignments, it's worth 100% on an exam. Does that make sense? So we're going to have 14 lab activities via Connect. Going to have this lab 1 activity, which is worth 15, actually it's going to be 16 points. This is going to be a very easy 16 points to get. You should be able to open it as soon as lab is over, class is over today. Easy 16 points, just follow the activity. We're going to have 12 virtual labs and 1 final exam worth 115 points. If you look here, your exams, 300 points here for all 3 exams, 150 for the final exam, 450 points. The max for the class is about 1,200 points. So your exams are only worth about a third of your grade. So do you have to ace every exam to get an A in the class? Someone give me an answer. No, you don't. You do not have to ace every exam to get a good grade in the class. You don't have to get a B on every exam to get a B in the course. There's a lot of other assignments and work to do throughout the semester that regardless of how well you test on those exams, you can still do well in the course. Here, expectation of students. In order to be successful in the class, must have good reading skills, must be able to commit time to reading and studying every day. General rule of thumb is that for every hour spent in the class, at least 2 hours should be spent reading the textbook and studying. A student who doesn't miss class, sets up an effective, consistent study program should do well. Please feel free to talk to me if you have any questions or need extra help. Like I said before, I haven't ever intentionally hit or bit anybody that I know of. And so if you're having problems, let me know and let me see if I can't help you out. Attend all lectures and labs. With regards to labs, you do not need to be there during the lab time. So we have lab on Thursdays. However, if you have a problem doing the labs, which are all online, if you have a problem doing the labs, that's when I'm going to be most likely and most able to be there for you. If you have a problem and you're doing the lab like, let's say, 10 o'clock on a Saturday night, I may not be available for you. So something to think about is getting it done during that time because I'll be here too. Don't get behind, keep up with the work. Don't wait until just before a quiz or an exam to master all the material. If you work through those quizzes, the reason I give those chapter quizzes with every chapter is it gives you a chance to know determine what you know and what you need to work on a little bit more. They're not supposed to be hard. There's a reason you have 2 attempts. They're not supposed to be hard. They're not, well, let's not say they're not supposed to be hard. They're not there to make your life really difficult. They're there to let you know what you know and what you don't know, and give you a chance to determine what you understand, what you might not understand so well. Instructor's attendance policy. There are several factors that may contribute to a student's success, failure in a course. One of the most common causes is poor attendance. So like I said, if you come in late to a lecture, just show up. Don't text me or email me at that moment and let me know that you're there. Just show up. I'll see your name. It comes up on my side that you're here. But it is fundamental to understanding the material presented. Students are expected to attend all lecture and laboratory Zoom sessions. Like I said, you don't have to attend all the Zoom sessions. I think the laboratory Zoom sessions, what I think I'll do is I'll start going through it with you. There's going to be worksheets where you're going to be asked questions. If you're here attending, it's going to be a lot easier for you to do those than if you're not here. Because we can also work through them together. laboratory sessions cannot be made up. Any points which have been received at these sessions will be lost. Attendance will be recorded during each class section. The college allows faculty to lower a student's overall course grade by 1 letter grade if the accumulated unexcused absences totals more than 10% of the total lab hours. So if you have over 7.5 unexcused class hours, I can lower your grade by 1 letter grade. So work to show up. Let's see here. Be on time. Like I said, I'm not so worried about you being on time. I'm more worried about you showing up. If you're 5 minutes late or 10 minutes late, that's fine. Just do me a favor and show up. Do us both a favor and show up. It's not like you cause a real interruption when you show up here with these Zoom meetings. Just show up. It doesn't, nobody even knows that you popped in and out except probably me. And it might show up a little bit of blip on someone else's screen, but it's not that big of a deal. I think we've said enough about absences there. Excused absence. If there is a problem, let me know. If hospitalization of a self-dependent or immediate family member, death of an immediate family member, jury duty, military duty. So makeup policy. Must contact me by email or through the Remind app in order to be permitted to take a makeup lecture quest or lab quest. Late work policy. For every day that something is submitted late, that it'll be penalized up to 10%. Get the things turned in on time. Cheating, plagiarism, interference, buying or selling term papers, homework examinations, laboratory assignments, falsifying one's own data, knowingly assisting someone who engages in those things, all can lead to, if maximally lead to you getting an F in the course, and also getting a record on the dean's list saying that you've had a problem in a class, which when that adds up over time, I can tell you it looks very poorly for you. I'll tell you, when professors go to write letters of recommendation, that's one of the things that they go and they look back and see. Incomplete grades policy. A grade of an incomplete may be assigned when a student is not able to complete the requirements due to extenuating circumstances. Incomplete grade will be assigned only after a conference with the instructor and after a serious need is determined. The F becomes an F if the grade is not completed before 8 weeks into the following semester. See here, Fair and Educational Opportunities Act. In our classrooms, as we work together in this virtual classroom, I want to create an environment where everybody's opinions matter, everybody's answers are acceptable. Right or wrong, you can answer without feeling any retaliation from the rest of the class, including me. We want to create an environment where everybody in the class matters. Students in need of accommodation, students with disabilities who are in need of accommodation should contact the campus disability coordinator listed below. Coordinators for each campus are listed at this website. Zoom etiquette, try to join up early. I will hopefully after today, this will be the last time that we'll start this late into the hour. Try to join up to 5 minutes before the meeting start time. You can use this time to test your audio and video if desired. Have the materials you need for lecture and lab ready ahead of time. Mute your microphone when not talking. Find a quiet place without interruptions or background noise. Sometimes that doesn't work when you're at your own house. Do the best you can, but I understand completely. If you want to speak, raise your hand. I would prefer, because I can only see so many people here, do me a favor, keep your mics muted when you're not talking, like I said before. And when you need to talk, just say something. Say, Professor Gessel, I have a question. I have a comment. Go ahead. Okay? Be respectful and kind to all participants. So this is what I was saying before. We're creating an environment here, and I want an environment here where everyone's opinions matter, everyone's answers matter. Everyone's answers are okay, right or wrong, they are okay. And you may be dismissed from a Zoom session if your behavior is incongruent with that environment. Here. There is tutoring available via Zoom throughout the semester. All schedules can be accessed through hack.edu students tutoring. Okay. So today, this is looking at the lecture schedule today. Syllabus, Introduction to D2L, Introduction to Connect, Chapter 1, Major Themes of Anatomy and Physiology. Next Tuesday, we'll finish Chapter 1. We'll work on Chapter 2. We'll finish Chapter 2 the following Tuesday. And then Chapter 3 the following Tuesday. I will put an exam out. It will start at midnight on that Tuesday. So it'll start, actually, let's not say that. Let's say it's going to start the Monday midnight. So it will be open for a week. So I'll put it up so it will be initiated Monday, September 28th at midnight. And it'll be open until the following midnight. That gives you a week to take it. We're going to cover basics of anatomy and physiology, chemistry of life, cellular form and function. I think these first 3 chapters are a lot of what you saw in your introductory biology courses. If you find this material confusing and hard, go back and review some of your other previous biology courses. Because then we're going to start talking about bone, nervous tissue, spinal cord and spinal nerves, brain and cranial nerves, autonomic nervous system and visceral reflexes, sense organs, your eyes, your ears, your mouth, your nose, your skin, muscular tissue, labs. So on Thursday, Introduction to Anatomy and Physiology. if you come in and you plan on attending that on Thursday with us, we will go through this together as a group. If you're not here, then you're going to need to do it on your own time. Work through organ identification, body cavities, and serous membranes. Introduction to the next week, introduction to the microscope, cellular organization, and membrane transport. I will have on Thursday, September 3rd at midnight. I'm gonna try to start them all so they start at midnight. I'm gonna have the first lab quest up. You'll have a week to take it. I will try to warn you, but when we have class and when I start an exam or a lab quiz, I will try to warn you that it's up and how long you have to take it when we meet, okay? These case studies, I hope you enjoy them. It's going to give you a problem, and what I want you to be able to do is work through the problem. We can possibly take some time out of lab and work through it a little bit and give you an idea as to where to go with it. You're going to answer some questions about it, and I want you to use the knowledge that you've gained in lecture and the knowledge that you've gained in lab to answer the questions about that case study. Okay. Any questions about the syllabus?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Okay, so when I ordered my books from the bookstore, it said that I needed the Wiley Plus book, edition 15. Do we not need that?
Edition 15.
That's what came up when I ordered them on the bookstore.
I have the same books too.
Come back up here and look.
Yeah, I also ordered the same books as well.
What is the Wiley? Bear with me just for a second. I wonder if that's what I have over here. Give me one moment.
I think they had that book assigned before you were assigned to the class, so I don't know.
Sorry, can you talk a little louder?
I said that they had that book assigned before you were assigned to the class, so I think that when you were assigned to the class, the book might have changed.
You know what? And the book, I didn't actually assign the book. That was assigned by the professors before I even showed up on the scene here. I honestly would take it back. If I were you, are you able to take it back?
I
No.
can't take mine back either.
What?
I can't take mine back.
Why can't you take it back?
It was a loose leaf and it said once I opened the saran wrap around it, I can't return it.
Yeah.
Let me ask some questions about that, okay?
Okay.
What is it? It's the Wiley edition 15th, Wiley 15th edition.
Yes.
I know someone told me that if we didn't pull the tab off the access code that we still could, but I'm not sure about the plastic.
I just pulled mine.
Yeah. Oh.
Let me look into that. I apologize. I don't even know what the book is. Let me look into it.
Okay.
Does that also apply for the lab manual? Because I have the lab manual that goes with it too.
What is the lab manual that goes with it?
It's the same thing. It's the laboratory manual for A&P by Wiley. It's the 6th edition lab manual.
All right, let me ask some questions about this stuff.
Yeah, I bought all the books.
Oh, okay. Let me ask some questions about it. I will after we're done here. I will make some no, excuse me, compose some emails and talk with the other lead professor for this class and ask her what she thinks we should do, and ask her where she wonders where the problem came from.
I emailed the bookstore yesterday, so if I get a response, I'll let you know too.
I would appreciate that. Who is that saying that?
That's Brooke.
Brooke, okay. If you would like to, let me tell you a quick little bit about myself, and then I will ask you if you would like to, and you do not need to do this because it can't be anonymous. Normally, I ask my students at the beginning of the semester to write down on a 3x5 card about themselves, why they're taking this course, what their goals are, what family responsibilities do you have, or other responsibilities unrelated to this course, what do you have? Normally, I would ask you to do this because you don't have to put your name on it. However, if you send me an email, your name's going to come up on it, regardless. If you want to, go ahead and send me an email telling me something about yourself, why you're taking this course, what are your hobbies, what are your family responsibilities outside of this course. Tell you a quick little bit about myself. I'm new to the East Coast. I've been in Maryland. I was here. Sorry, not Maryland anymore. I've been on the East Coast for about 2 years. You know, bear with me just for a second. I think I have students who still can't get into the course. They should be there now. One more. Nope. Okay. I'm sorry if you were waiting there to get in. I just let you in. I apologize for that. Do me a favor if that happens again. Let me know, and I will try to get you into the class. And I apologize for that one.
Okay.
I'm telling you that you can come in late. That may not work so well. You may have to wait. Keep sending me a text and letting me know that you're not in there, and I will try to pay attention to my phone. Like I told the students before, I'm going to keep my phone on because I found out that I actually have to admit you all. You can't just join up in the meeting. And I didn't really want to do it that way, but I think it has to do with Zoom confidentiality and so forth. We will work through some of these bumps and problems together. So just be patient with me. If, like I said, if you weren't here a couple minutes ago, as far as I know, I've never intentionally hit or bit anybody. So if there's a problem, just tell me. Okay? And I will
Okay.
more than willing to try to figure out how to fix it. I expect you all to do well in the course. Don't lose confidence over one low score. Plan on doing well in the course because I found that probably 75 to 80% of my students end up doing a lot better than they thought they were doing. Be patient with yourselves. And if you start really struggling, be open and honest with me. I'm a fairly nice person, and I've probably been through a lot of your struggles. And I have been a student. I was a student for, I have 2 master's degrees and a bachelor's degree. I've been a student for a long time. I was a student for a long time. If there's a problem, let me know and I will try to figure out how to help you with it. Let's go into D2L. So I'm going to close out the syllabus here. Okay, bear with me just for a second here. Share. So, bright space, D2L. Second here. Try to make my screen look like what you see. Bear with me just for a moment here. 304. Click on our class. Trying to get it so that I see what you see. You as a student. It's back over here. So when you go into Biology 121, 304, and you start looking right here, the first thing you see is syllabus. The second see is extra credit. With the first chapter is chapter 1, major themes of anatomy and physiology. This first icon right here, to get access to the book, click on this. And it's going to bring you here, and it's going to say, if your assignment hasn't launched, click this button. So 5 students have already started this, 6 have not. Let's see here. The first thing before you get to this point, it's going to ask you if you want to get access to the ebook. If you don't want to buy it at that moment, you don't have the finances to buy it at that moment. You have a 2-week free trial with it. Connect with that. You will have to get access to that ebook for success in this course, because your labs are going to come through that ebook. A lot of your labs. You will need to get access to that.
Excuse me, is that the A&P ebook, the Unity and Form of Function one that you were
Yes.
referring to at the beginning?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
No, you're perfect. Like Josh. Do you like Josh or do you like Joshua?
Josh, it's fine.
Josh?
Whatever you want.
Like Josh just did that right there. Just interrupt me if you've got a question, just tell me. Okay? Don't raise your hand. Just unmute your mic and say whatever. And if I need to stop you so that I can finish my thoughts, I'll tell you. But I want our class to be an open class and make it as open as possible, knowing we have to do this virtually. Okay?
I have a question.
What's your question?
When I go in, the launch button does not launch for me. I actually downloaded the ebook, but I cannot go through the launch button on the school site.
Are you able to get the Connect activities, Corinne? Or Connie? I'm sorry.
That's okay. No, I'm not able to log into it.
I'm going to give you a number to call. Bear with me. I had it here a minute yesterday. Let's see here. I'm actually probably going to have to look it up. Give me one moment here.
Make sure your pop-ups aren't blocked here because it comes up in a separate page.
If your pop-ups are blocked. Okay. Bear with me just for a second. I'm going to come into this. I think I'm going to have to look for it. So give me one moment here. Help. I have found that this phone number, if you contact them, and I can say I've spent a lot of time talking with McGraw-Hill over the last couple of weeks. They are really great. If you talk with them and they don't help you, that's when you text or email me or call me, and I call them and then I get after them and ask why my students aren't being able to access. And I will give them your name and so forth, and that you're in this course and why can't you get in there. So if you have, like I said before, any problems that you have, please let me know. And I will work to try to figure out how to fix them.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Let me see here. Where is that phone number? Let's see. Are you looking for help with? Yes. Let's do this. There is a phone number. I've called it multiple times. So let's see here. You know what? Bear with me. I'm just going to look it up on my phone because I had to call them yesterday.
They also send you an email and you can log in from there too.
Really?
Yeah, because that happened to me too. I tried to launch to the D2L and I couldn't. So I had to click on the email that they sent you and the login is in there too.
Okay. Let me give you this phone number. If you need me to say it more than one time, please let me know. One thing that I haven't said before, I am hearing impaired. And so when I start, and I'm fairly good, when I don't understand what you're saying, I will tell you. When I ask you, when I reiterate what you're saying, like I say, is this what you're asking? Bear with me, it's because I'm just making sure that I heard you right. So if you ever need me to repeat something or say something again, please just tell me, because I understand more than you'll ever know. The phone number for McGraw-Hill Technical Support is 1-800-331-5094. So it's 1-800-331-5094.
Thank you.
Yes. And give them a call, and if they can't help you, that's when you text me or email. You text me, do me a favor with regards to something like that, and you're trying to find out today rather than needing to wait until tomorrow. Text me or call me right now, and I teach one thing. Sorry, I'm getting a little disjointed today. Going to tell you a little bit about my responsibilities. I told you if you want to, send me an email about your family responsibilities, your other things that you have going on. My responsibilities, I don't have a lot of family responsibilities. I'm a single person who lives with a great roommate who's very accommodating to the fact that I'm teaching most of my classes from the house. But one of my major responsibilities this semester is that HAC is one of 3 schools that I teach for. I teach for 2 more schools in Maryland, and I have lectures and labs with them also. So if you try to text me and email me or call me and I don't get back to you immediately, recognize that Monday through Friday I have multiple classes all day long. So be patient with me as I try to get back to you. It may be that I don't get back to you until 11 o'clock at night, but I will work to get back to you. Hobbies that probably my most favorite things right now is that I like to cross-country cycle. Right now, because of time constraints, I don't go very far, but I try to get out at least once to twice a week. And could you let me back into the Zoom call? I got disconnected. Let me see. Sorry, so this is why I'm going to keep my phone ringing, because if for some reason you get disconnected from the Zoom call, this is when you text me and ask me to get you reconnected in, because I have to be able to admit you individually.
I have a quick question. The supplemental text, is that something that we're required to get along with the ebook?
I honestly would not worry. I've not seen that textbook. I've only got our general textbook.
Okay.
I personally, if you feel like you need it, get it. I wouldn't worry that much about it with the fact that you can get on the internet and look at almost any structural process you want to. I wouldn't worry so much about it.
All right, thank you.
Excuse me. Would it be possible to also use the books that we already did buy to look up any of that information as
Yeah,
well?
I'm sure you can. You're going to need to get the AMP1 Slatin, at least the electronic book, because a lot of your activities are going to be related to that book. And like I said, Josh, I will look to get into that. I'll try to figure out where that problem was.
No worries. I was gonna buy the A&P book as we're talking right now.
I know, but and that really, I can understand. How much was that Wiley book that you purchased?
Between both of them,
Yeah.
a few $100.
Wow. Okay. Let me see. I think I'm also going to contact the dean about that one, because that's a lot of money and I apologize about that. Let me see if I can figure out what's going on with that, okay? Because that really
No worries.
that stinks and I apologize.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. It's not your fault.
I know, but that's that's probably the first time that that's happened to me so far, knock on wood. But, oh, yuck. Okay. Let's do something else really quickly here. So I'm going to come back back into content, courses, 304. If you look down here, lecture materials. Actually, before I do this one right here, this that you're going to launch, that allows you to launch that book, it tells you when this is due. September 14th. This is that smart book assignment where it's a matter of did you do it or did you not? You need to do it by 1 in the morning on the 14th of September. And if you remember looking at the syllabus, if you get all the smart book assignments done, it's 100 points, which is the worth is the same as amount as getting 100% on one exam. It carries some weight to it. It will dock your score almost a complete grade by not getting any of them done. So if you do not have to do well on every exam. You do not have to ace every exam to get an A in the class. You don't have to get a B on every exam to get a B in the class. Don't stress too much about getting the top scores on every exam. If you get A's on all the exams, but you don't get any of the lab work done and you don't get any of the assignments done, you will still fail the course. When the school went virtual last semester, I know I wasn't teaching for HACC at the time, but I know you guys probably, if you were in school with HACC last semester, you remember how amazing that was when all the schools shut down at the same time and we all had to go online whether we wanted to or not. I had some students in my classes at Terrell Community College that quit attending altogether. I had one student who got an A on the final, got an A on the third exam, but I didn't see him from the time that the school shut down. I didn't hear anything about him or see any of his grades. until he aced the final on that third exam. You guys, he failed the course. You have to be involved in the course throughout the course, or you will fail the course. So do us all a favor, both you and me, and be involved throughout the whole semester. And I can't enforce that enough with you, because that was really quite disturbing to me. I kept trying to email him and I never heard back from him. And he ended up failing the course when I knew he knew the material. I knew he did. But because if you don't submit it to me and it's not graded, it doesn't go into your calculated grade. So be involved throughout the semester. Do the best you can. And like I said earlier, 75 to 80% of my students end up doing a lot better than they thought they were doing. So let's talk about lecture here. This is the PowerPoint for lecture for chapter 1. This is a worksheet for chapter 1. This worksheet, I'm not going to give you study guides for for your exams. This worksheet right here is your study guide for chapter 1. Be patient with me as I make these up. I will try to get both of these things posted. You're the second A&P course that I teach this week. So hopefully I will not have this problem with you guys. But I will try to get this posted as early as possible. What I do first is I have to make up this PowerPoint because I'm new to Hack. I make these up. And I have to make them up I make them up probably a week prior to lecture. I work to get it done. I make up the PowerPoint, and then I make this up, the worksheet up. So I'm not going to have all these made for all 10 chapters right now, because I don't have the PowerPoints made for all 10 chapters. Right now, I'm trying to work through the basics of getting chapter 4 done, which is our bone one. I will get chapter 2 done later this week, and I will make the worksheet for it right afterwards. And I will post them both here. This worksheet, if you look through your book, and if you work through the PowerPoint, you should be able to find all the answers to those questions. If you don't see them, that's when you bring it up with me. I won't go through the answers of these questions. If you have questions about it and you're not sure what the answers are, that's when you ask me. But I'm not going to tell you what all the answers are. I want you to look through the PowerPoint. I want you to look through the book. If you don't see them in the PowerPoint, look at the PowerPoint first. If you don't see them there, then go to your book. Use the PowerPoints as your primary source for information. Use the book next. Then use your peers and me. Okay, so in that order, when you're studying for exams, when you're studying for lecture, when you're studying for lab, start with the ebook. Start looking at the labs. Then use the PowerPoints. Then use me and your peers. If you have all the answers on this worksheet, you should do well on the exams.
Is there a lab manual or is it in the ebook?
I'm not sure if there's a lab manual that you have access to. I would worry more about being involved in the lab. If on Thursday, let's talk more about the lab manual and so forth and lab, okay? Is that okay? Is it Daniela's?
Yeah. Yeah, that's okay.
Let's bear with me. Well, while we're here, let me look just for a minute here. Let's look at the lab. So this is the first lab right here. These are all links. A lot of these are videos. Then there's a PowerPoint. There's another PowerPoint. And then there's a practice naming quiz. And then there's this virtual lab simulation. If you look back and you look at that, I told you that one of your first lab Connect activity was worth 16 points. That's this right here. It's just helping you work through a virtual lab. If you had virtual labs last semester when the school shut down, sometimes if you're missing one step, it won't let you go forward. If you go back and figure out the one step that you missed, it will let you go forward. This is just a practice simulation for you to get used to doing a virtual lab. It's a very easy 16 points. So Danielle, I honestly, let me email the other lead professor about a lab manual, and see what she says about it, because I'm not sure just how beneficial it'll be, because all your stuff is online. All your worksheets are online. If you really want to Google how a process looks, or what an organ looks like, or what the histology looks like, you can do that without a lab manual. Let me email her and see what she says about the benefit of the lab manual is, okay? Let's see here. This right here, glossary of root words and prefixes and suffixes. Yeah. There you. This is a document. This is part of chapter 1, the end of chapter 1 in our textbook. Talks about naming things. I'm going to go through it really briefly with you, but we're going to hit on it constantly throughout the semester. So we'll talk about it briefly at the end of on the next Tuesday. But you can print it out, this document, hold on to it. A lot of anatomy and physiology is learning names. However, a lot of these names come from root words. If you know the root word, you can take a guess as to what the name is. And you can be partially correct just through that. When we have root words, when I talk about terminology and we start with today talking about the physiology and anatomy, I will start sharing with you, and I'll try to make a note of root words and keywords. And I will try to help you understand that if you can learn the root words and the word roots and the prefixes and the suffixes, it isn't all about memorization at that point. Sometimes it's It's a matter of learning these word roots, prefixes, and suffixes, and taking a guess as to what that word is. And that will make more sense throughout the semester, I think. Any questions more about lecture and lab that I can answer right now?
How did you, where are the labs at on the page?
If you come back to content, and come down to laboratory exercises.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So I'm going to start with chapter 1 here. Coming into the chapter 1 module, chapter 1 lecture materials. Wait a second, see if it'll show up for me. Why is it not there? We're going to do this differently. So can I make this different? Bear with me just for a second here. Major themes of anatomy and physiology. So what I would like you to do, and a good way to start studying for this course, is print out that PDF of that worksheet. And knowing this is the first day of class, I know probably a good 95% of you haven't had a chance to do this or thought to do this. But print out that PDF. So I'll put up the chapter 2 worksheet by next week. Print that out. When we start going through this lecture PowerPoints, start answering those questions. If for some reason we have an issue like we had this morning with Zoom, which hopefully I'll work through those chinks today. If we have an issue like that, for some reason that Zoom goes out like it did yesterday for 3 hours, you can go in and already start studying because the PowerPoint is there, that worksheet is there. Start looking at the material. Okay. So that anatomy and physiology is the basis of health sciences. Anatomy is defined as the study of structures and the relationships among those structures. The first studies of anatomy were performed, I want to say, in the early 1700s, maybe even before that. And at that point, it was actually taboo to cut into a dead body. Dead bodies were considered sacred. And if you look at the father of, and I'm always messing up the name here, the father of anatomy, who I think, and I'm actually going to Google this on my phone before I mess it up and say the wrong name. Bear with me just for a second here. Father of anatomy was Andreas Versalius. Did all his dissections in secret because it was considered taboo and would have put him in prison for probably the rest of his life for performing any dissections. A lot of the first dissections were done through grave robbing and digging up graves and dissecting those bodies. other fathers of anatomy that we really, really like. Think I don't want to tell you the wrong names, and I'm not an art historian. Leonardo da Vinci was quite the anatomist. If you see, let me see if I can find it for you. Let's see here. Bear with me just for a second here. I don't know if this will work, but I'm going to try. How many of you have ever seen this photo? That's right here. So this was Leonardo da Vinci. If you've heard of the Body World exhibits, have you ever heard of the Body World exhibits? Went on an international tour. The main person that they advertise and talk about during that exhibit was Leonardo da Vinci, because he was an incredible artist who made a lot of efforts to draw out human anatomy. Do one more thing here. Body World exhibit. I think the main Body World exhibit that's permanent is there's one in Boston, Massachusetts. That's the closest one to us. I will, throughout the semester, I will try to, if I can, I will try to relate things back to what I remember I went to when I lived in, I told you I was fairly new to the East Coast. I've been out on the East Coast for just a little over 2 years now. When I lived in Idaho, the Body World exhibit came to Salt Lake City, and me and a bunch of peers went down inside. Pretty amazing. The closest one that's permanent, that's all the time. Boston, Massachusetts, a permanent Body World exhibit. So people who have given their body to science and then it becomes fixed and can be used to study anatomy, and it's very clean, pretty amazing. So Museum of Science, Boston. So if you ever get a chance, it was several years ago that I saw the one in Salt Lake, but it made quite the impression, and it was absolutely phenomenal. Let's come back into our lecture. And if you hear my little dogs barking in the background, I apologize. I told you that I like cross-country cycling. I also, between my roommate and I, we have 3 cats and 2 small dogs. So first studies were performed using dissections. The most recent studies use imaging techniques, such as X-rays, CT scans, PET scans, ultrasounds, all of which we'll talk about in this chapter. Physiology is the study of how the body structures function. There's a complementarity, or let's see, I think that's the right way to say that word, complementarity, where a function relies on the structure of an object. If the structure gets altered, the function will get altered. For example, looking at the heart, I'm going to talk about muscle towards the very end of the semester. But at this very moment, one thing about muscle is that it has a grain, just like wood has a grain. Can you guys see my mouse? Do you see my mouse?
Your screen is set like frozen.
So you don't see my mouse?
No.
Okay.
No.
If you look at, I'll try to make this more specific then. If you look at the lines in this heart muscle, that's what this diagram is showing.
We don't see anything on your screen. It's still on the.
Oh, shoot. Well, it's not. Wait, let me see. A new share.
I think if you pull the bar down on the side.
Let's try something else.
There you go.
Now? So you haven't been seeing anything as I've been going through this?
Yeah.
Nope.
All right. When that kind of stuff happens, sorry, you didn't hear me say that.
Yeah.
When that kind of stuff happens, please let me know. When I'm starting talking about probably a PowerPoint and you're wondering what in the world I'm showing you because you can't see it, feel free to say something to me. Let's start at the very beginning here. So major of anatomy and physiology. Did you see the syllabus when I was going through the syllabus?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we could see that.
Oh, how embarrassing. Okay. So major themes of anatomy and physiology. Anatomy and physiology is the basis of study of the health sciences. Anatomy is the study of the structures and the relationships among the structures. You saw the Vitruvian man. Did you see that one? A picture
Yes.
up online. Okay. So Leonardo da Vinci took a lot of time to take anatomy and make pictures and draw pictures, and a lot of the pictures that you find in textbooks. I was just in Costco the other day in Owens Mill, Maryland, and they had a pop-up anatomy book. And some of the drawings in that book, in this pop-up anatomy book, meaning a book for like junior high students, showed a lot of copies of his drawings. Very famous drawings trying to draw what he saw in the internal structures of the human body. Did it all in secret because it was technically against the law at that point and would have put him in prison for a very long time if the world as a whole and society as a whole knew what he was doing. A lot of the bodies that they got for dissections were through grave robbing. Was taboo to cut into a body. But but at that point, before our imaging techniques, if you couldn't cut into a body, how were you going to learn what the internal structures were? You can see some from the outside, but the majority you can't. So now today, we still do dissections, but we also use a lot of imaging techniques, such as X-rays, CT scans, PET scans, ultrasounds, to see inside the body and image things. It's a lot less invasive than going in and cutting into somebody to try to determine what's going on and what's there. Physiology is the study of how the body structures function. Complementarity is how function relies on an object structure. If the structure changes, the function will probably change, will most likely change. If the structure gets completely disrupted, the function will be gone. For example, with the heart here, if you look at the heart muscle, and we'll talk about muscle towards the end of the semester, but if you look at heart muscle, it has almost what you would consider like the grain of a wood to it. It tends to run one direction. Skeletal muscle and cardiac muscle both have this grain to it. Smooth muscle, it's a lot harder to see that grain. But cardiac muscle has this grain to it. When the muscle contracts, meaning it gets more, it gets shorter, the length gets shorter, the whole length of this muscle becomes smaller. If you look at this, this heart muscle is wrapped around the base and wrapped up and comes up to the top of the base of the heart. What will happen when that whole string of muscle that starts right here, right? Can you see where my mouse is? Do you see my mouse?
Yes.
Yes.
So if the muscle starts right here, it wraps around like this, comes down like this, comes across like this, comes down like this, comes back up like this, wraps around right here. If that's one full string, one full string of muscle, the full length of muscle, if that length becomes shorter, what is going to happen to that organ? What is going to happen to the volume within the heart?
It'll get smaller, decrease,
It's going to get smaller. Why is it going to get smaller?
because it's gonna shrink up everything.
Yeah, it's going to shrink up everything. Guess why the heart is such a good pump? Because every time it shrinks like that, it pushes all the blood out. So this is one of those examples where the structure of the organ helps with the function and determines the function. You guys see that? If we have this one string, this whole string of muscle that wraps around, when that whole string becomes a little shorter, just like when you're tying your shoelace, when the whole thing tightens up, the volume within your shoe tightens up, and that's why we like to have our shoelaces tightened up. Because then it actually feels snug on our foot. This is what we call complementarity, when function relies on the structure of an object. So the development of techniques for looking into the body without having to perform dissections has greatly accelerated the progress of health sciences. X-rays, for example, were discovered in 1885 by William Röntgen. X-rays are low level, or let's say low levels of light, short wavelengths of light that pass through soft tissue. And when they pass through soft tissue, they bounce off, depending on that tissue. They bounce off, and when the rays bounce off the tissue, they leave an image on a photographic film, which produces dark images. What I want you to understand, I think one of my questions for you on that worksheet was, what is the basic mechanism of this, of an X-ray? Wavelengths of light passing through tissues. They bounce off, it bounces off of those tissues onto a photographic film. It diffracts off of the tissue onto a photographic film, producing a dark image. I don't know if we have any students here going into radiology. You're going to learn more and more about X-rays than you ever wanted to know. Radiology is probably one of the higher demands, if you're not going into nursing, one of the higher demanding fields right now.
Repeat that definition one more time.
What?
Can you repeat that definition one more time for the question that you were talking about?
Let me say it one more time. So the mechanism of action behind X-rays is that the wavelengths of light are passed through soft tissues. As they pass through soft tissues, they diffract. And the diffraction pattern is collected on a photographic film where a dark image is produced. Do you want me to say it again?
Yes, please.
If I worded it a little differently, bear with me. I'm trying to make it a simpler definition every time I say it.
Are we able to write down the X-ray, one that you have there under the radiography? Would that work?
Yeah.
You can just write down what's there. Excellent.
You can copy it right off the PowerPoint there. But it's where wavelengths of light are passed through the tissue. Wavelengths of light are passed through the tissue, diffracts off, and the diffraction pattern is revealed onto photographic film to produce a dark image. You heard of refraction of light and diffraction of light? It's the same thing here. So dense tissue like bone and teeth, enamel being the strongest material of the body, looks very white. Other images look a lot darker. So X-rays and radiography accounts for about 50% of all medical imaging. Another form of imaging is digital subtraction angiography, or DSA, where hollow organs and blood vessels can be visualized by using a contrast medium. Have you ever heard of someone needing a triple bypass?
Yeah.
Do you know how they were diagnosed as needing a triple bypass?
No, I do not.
This is how they did it. I will tell you that, and most likely, I don't know, there are very few exceptions of it, this is how they did it. And the reason the way they do it is you introduce a dark medium. Introduce a medium that's either got a fluorescence in it or it's got a radioactive substance to it, some sort of ink or dye that can be observed. They oftentimes put it in through the femoral artery or the subclavian artery. Subclavian meaning clavicle right here. Subclavian, SUBCLAVIAN. What does sub mean when I say sub?
Under.
Under. And I say clavian, what does clavian probably mean? And if you see me right here, what's this right here?
It's your clavicle.
This is your clavicle. So your subclavian artery runs underneath your clavicle. Sub meaning under, clavian meaning clavicle. Subclavian artery runs right underneath your clavicle. So I told you how anatomy is not always about memorizing everything. If you can learn some of these root words, you're going to save yourself a lot of grief. So they introduce, do you know where your femur is? Where's your femur bone?
Front of your leg.
And is it in the top part of your leg or the bottom part of your leg?
The top part.
Top part. Your femoral artery, femur is spelled how?
FEMUR.
Femoral artery, F is FEMORAL. Your femoral artery runs along your femur.
On the inside?
On the inside, correct. Most of your arteries run close to the inside. Few of them are you can see them fairly well, like occasionally your aortic artery and your jugular vein up here, more your aortic artery. How about right here, you can feel your pulse. So they often introduce this contrasting medium through either your subclavian artery or your femoral artery. It fills the hollow structures, meaning it can fill the blood vessels or the intestinal tract. When I say your intestinal tract, when I say your tract, your whole GI tract starts at your mouth and ends at your anus. And it's one tube that goes all the way through. So that part of that tube can be filled with this media and be visualized. And the result is that there's a clear picture of the structures that can be studied independently of the rest of the body. This right here is your aortic arch. Here's your heart. Here's the heart right here. you remember, I'm going to come back up to this one right here. Here's your heart. Here's the aortic arch. Aortic arch. Do you see it right there? Do you see the aortic arch right there?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that I'm glad you can't do this to other people with this virtual lab. If you have a child in the background, do me a favor and don't do it to them because it's going to hurt them, especially right while I'm watching. But if you put your finger right there on you and you push down, don't do it too hard so you don't hurt yourself, but right underneath where your sternum is, push right underneath there and then just stop for a minute. Push so you're right underneath your sternum back there. And then don't move for a minute. Don't breathe for a minute, or you probably have to breathe, but don't move and don't make any noise. Do you feel your pulse?
Yes.
That's your aortic arch right there. That's the reason you feel that pulse right there, is because that's right above your aortic arch. It's probably not the best way to take a pulse because you're going to hurt somebody, and it's not a comfortable thing, especially to do it on somebody else. Sonography is the second oldest and most widely used method of imaging. Sonography or ultrasound the mechanics involved is when a handheld device is pressed against the skin that produces a high frequency sound. Sound waves echo back from internal organs. The bouncing back of those sound wave echoings is used to produce an image. So sonography or ultrasound is where a handheld device is pressed against the skin to produce a high frequency sound that can echo back from internal organs. The echoing back can be used to create an image. Same thing as sonar on the water, where when you think back on submarines and how ships put out high frequency sounds to detect things in the water. Same thing here. Avoids harmful X-rays. Not an X-ray, it's not a radioactive wavelength. Used in obstetrics. Also used to view tissues in motion, fetal movement, heart wall, blood flow. I can tell you it's also used for gastrointestinal things and to view gastrointestinal tissues. Had a personal experience. I told you guys that I have 3 cats and my roommate has 2 dogs. One of my cats is now on a very special diet because at the very end of last semester, he started losing weight. And he started showing all the signs of being anorexic, even though he was eating all the time. And he always been a small cat, weighs about 10.5 pounds. At the time that I finally realized, and sometimes I'm a little slow to realize that my cats and my animals are having problems. When I finally realized that he really wasn't doing well, took him into the vet and he weighed 6.5 pounds. And my vet decided that he wanted to do some blood work, and I let him do some blood work. came back and found out that my cat, even though he was eating all the time, was digesting away all his muscles and metabolizing all his muscles. So when I say showing all the signs of anorexia, meaning he, even though he was eating all the time, he wasn't absorbing in anything. And so because he's living in a state of starvation, even though he's eating all the time, he was breaking down all his muscles for energy. So when I finally got him in, he had gone from being 9.5 pounds a year and a half ago to weighing 6.5 pounds. My vet's suggestion to me here in Hanover, Pennsylvania, was to take him down to the pet ER in Towson, Maryland, and have them do an ultrasound. They did an ultrasound and found out that his gastrointestinal tissue was thickened. One thing that we're going to talk about, and if we don't talk about it this semester, you're going to hear about it next semester, is that the gastrointestinal tissue is very thin. The layer is very, very thin. And it's very, very thin to allow things to absorb across it. His tissue was thickening up, which meant that even though he was eating all this material, because the tissue had thickened up, he was no longer absorbing almost anything that he was eating. It probably has not gone away. He is 13, almost 13 and a half years old. But I wasn't really ready to lose him. So I put him on a special diet, a much easier digestible food. And so far he is now up to almost 11 pounds, which is actually a very healthy weight for him. And how that was diagnosed was all ultrasounds. Was based on the fact that the tissue had thickened up, and they could see that in an ultrasound. So no exploratory surgery, just a matter of this high frequency sound, creating these sound waves that echo back from an internal organ, creating an image, allowing them to see that this tissue had thickened up. CT scanning is useful for detecting tumors and detecting things like tumors, aneurysms, cerebral hemorrhages, and kidney stones. CT scanning stands for computed tomography. Was formerly called a CAT scan. It's where low intensity X-rays, I'm working again with wavelengths here, low intensity X-rays and computer analysis allow for a slice type imaging, increased sharpening of an image, increased sharpness of an image. Right here, and hopefully when we talk about anatomy labs, and you know this is my first semester teaching this course, and I'm going to learn about the labs as you learn about the labs. One type of sectioning is, let me make sure I'm right here, is, I gotta make sure I use the right word, a coronal section through the body. And what this section, if we look right here, this is through the trunk. So this is about where your stomach is, right? I'm gonna stand up really quick here. About right here, through the back, maybe a little lower. This is a slice image. Taking a slice right here and looking at it. This is the back. Can you take a guess if I tell you this is the back, what this probably is?
Spine.
That's the spine. This right here depending on whether that is the left or the right, and I think it is the left, is your stomach. Depending on whether we're looking at the bottom or the top, it could be flipped. But I think that if we're looking at the top down, that's your stomach. 2 kidneys right here. 1 kidney, the other kidney towards the very back. Here's the GI tract in here. If you see that little white speck right there, it's a kidney stone. So using a CT scan or computed tomography to visualize a stone in the kidneys. This right here is a picture of a hemorrhagic stroke in the brain. So this is going through about right here on the head, taking a section back, looking at a slice, showing how much bleeding occurred when an artery broke in the vein and bled out. So CT scans allow for this slice type imaging using low intensity x-rays and computer analysis. MRIs are better than CT scans for visualizing soft tissues like the brain and the spinal cord enclosed in the skull and the vertebral column, and also the knee joint. MRI stands for magnetic resonance imaging. When I say magnetic, what do I probably mean here? What does it probably use?
Magnets.
Uses a magnetic field. You're going to create, when you take an image like this, you're going to create a magnetic field. It's best for visualizing soft tissues, like the brain and the spinal cord, like the meniscus in the knee joints. How this occurs is that the magnetic field is created that allows for the alignment and realignment of hydrogen atoms on the organic groups that make up that area. So with the magnetic field and radio waves, you get an alignment of the hydrogen atoms that allows for a creation of an image through varying levels of energy given off used by the computer to produce an image. So when the alignment of hydrogen ions gives off a level of energy that can be detected by a computer to create an image. This right here is an image of a knee joint. Here's the femur. Here's the tibia. Here's the fibula right here. Meniscus is right here. Meniscus is spelled meniscus. So this is the meniscus is the cartilage ring or cartilage disc that is in between the femur and the tibia. What this image is showing and what they've done with this MRI is they're showing that there is a growth of the cartilaginous meniscus that has seemed to have an off-growth of tissue. From that meniscus that's in between the knees. Something that either it's been torn off or it's been a growth where there's been a tearing of that area. You've heard of people getting knee replacements or they've torn their meniscus in their knee. That's that area that they've injured. A PET scan is used to assess the metabolic state of a tissue. For example, after a heart attack or cancer. It stands for positron emission tomography. Determines which tissues are metabolically most active. So metabolism, metabolically, METIBI, I'm going to spell this out before I try. I wish I had a whiteboard here. Let me do this differently here. Give me 1 second here. METABOLICALLY. Metabolically active. So we're going to talk throughout the semester, we're going to talk a little bit about metabolism. Metabolically is saying which tissue is showing the most amount of metabolism at that moment. So positron emission tomography determines which tissues are metabolically most active at a given moment. The mechanics of this is that a radioactively labeled glucose tracer. Why do you think they would use glucose? From your earlier biology classes, what's glucose?
Sugar.
It's sugar. What's the significance of glucose over like fructose or sucrose or maltose or lactose? Why don't we use one of those other sugars rather than glucose?
Is it denser than the others?
Say it one more time.
Is it denser than the others?
No, it's not exactly denser, but it is the one that's most easily used. It doesn't have to be broken down. It's a 6-ring carbon. It doesn't have to be broken down any further, and it's the universal sugar for the body to be able to use. And it's the most easily used. When we talk about eating things that are simple sugars, when you think about somebody who's dealing with a diabetic shock, what do you give them?
Glucose tags?
And the reason you give them is because that is the most easily available sugar that will immediately bump up their blood glucose levels or bump up their blood sugar levels. So the mechanics of this positron emission tomography scan is that we're injecting this radioactively labeled glucose tracer. And it introduces radioactive positrons. What's an electron?
Part of an atom.
It's a what?
It's part of the atom.
What part of the atom is it?
The negative part.
It's the negative part. So positrons are positively charged matter. An electron is the negatively charged. Positrons is another, it's a type of submatter that's positive.
Isn't it a proton?
I don't think it's the same as a proton. I was trying to figure that out myself as I was studying this up. I don't think it is. If it is, it's radioactive. It might be, let me look into this before now and Thursday, but it may be a radioactive proton. But I'm not positive about that. I don't know. A play on words, no pun intended there. I'm not positive about what that is, but it might be a radioactive proton. Let me look into it a little bit. So it's introducing these radioactive positrons that collide with the electrons. Gamma rays, radioactive gamma rays are given off, detected by a sensor, and analyzed by a computer, and the image color shows tissues using the most glucose at that moment. So which tissues are the most metabolically active at that point? Which tissue is needing the most amount of glucose, breaking down the most amount of that radioactive glucose at that moment? This image that I found, this is a normal brain showing the basal ganglia and the substantia nigra of the brain, which are the two organs that are most affected in Parkinson's disease. And if you look here, you compare the normal function of the basal ganglia in a normal brain, compare it to the Parkinson's. Do you see how the red, that metabolically active area, completely goes away? So PET scans can determine which tissues are most active at a given moment. What tissues are most metabolically active at a given moment? Which tissues are using the most glucose at that moment? Okay. So I've got some questions here, and in addition to your worksheet questions, we're gonna discuss these questions. And these questions are also possible exam questions, quiz questions. What structures are probably better seen by an MRI than an X-ray?
Soft tissue.
Soft tissue. Do you remember why?
I don't remember.
Because the x-rays pass through the soft tissue.
Well, and what essentially what you're looking at with an X-ray is you're looking at dense versus harder tissue. So I'm sorry, thinner tissue versus thicker tissue. An MRI, it's not considered so much to do with whether or not the tissue is harder or softer. It's looking at the density of that tissue, or looking at the thickness of that tissue, the malleability of that tissue. What structures are better seen by an X-ray than a PET scan?
The bone.
Dense tissue.
Say it again. The last one, what was the last one? I heard bone.
Dense tissues.
Dense tissues. So PET scans are looking more, bone, we're going to learn, bone isn't very metabolically active. It's pretty active. I mean, you think it's not, it's a pretty stagnant tissue, but it's really not. It's fairly active. But it's not as active as probably your neurological tissues and your stomach tissues. So when you're trying to look at bone, X-ray is probably better. When you're trying to determine whether tissue is, how metabolically active is it at that time, because that has a lot to do with sometimes with the health of the tissue. If the tissue is dying, like in the case of Parkinson's, you want to use a PET scan for that. So Ellen is pregnant and tells Janet, one of her coworkers, that she is scheduled to get a fetal sonogram. Remember, a sonogram is the same as an ultrasound. Janet expresses alarm and warns Ellen about the danger of exposing the fetus to X-rays. Is Janet's concern warranted?
No.
Why?
By sound waves.
Yeah. If you, I just thought of it a second ago, just now. If you remember the sonogram, sono means sound.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not, you're not using radiation here.
Kind of like sonar.
Yes, the echoing back. So we talked about complementarity at the beginning here. The structure of a part of the body allows the performance of certain functions. For example, the bones of the skull provide protection for the brain. And we talk about this probably in lab for bone tissue, the calvarium. Calvarium is spelled C. You guys, because I don't know if you would struggle with this, but I would struggle with how I spell things out because I'm hearing impaired and I struggle sometimes with individual letters. If you don't mind, I'm going to use military phonetics here when I spell things out for you. Calvarium is spelled C as in Charlie, A as in Alpha, L as in Lima, V as in Victor, A as in Alpha, R as in Romeo, I as in India, U as in uniform, M as in Mike. So calvarium, cal meaning your brain area, calvarium is the case that encompasses your brain. So the bones of the skull provide protection for the brain. Then air sacs in the lungs, and I'm going to give you another word, another term, alveoli. A is in Alpha, L is in Lima, V is in Victor, E is in Echo, O is in Oscar, L is in Lima, I is in India. I'm going to write that out and make sure I actually spelled it right. Yeah. So A is in Alpha, L is in Lima, V is in Victor, E is in Echo, O is in Oscar, L is in Lima, I is in India. Those are the thin air sacs of the lungs that permit this movement of gases like oxygen and carbon dioxide. Very, very thin. When you hear of people that are struggling with pneumonia, it's because they get fluid in these sacs. What would fluid, if you feel, here's the blood vessel right here. If we get, and here's the sac thickness that's really thin of the alveoli, the air sac here. If you get a level of fluid right here, what's going to happen to the amount of diffusion of oxygen and carbon dioxide across that tissue?
It's going to make it a lot more difficult.
It's going to be blocked.
Yeah, it's going to be blocked, or it's going to make, or it's going to become a lot more difficult. So the thinness of these alveoli sacs is what allows for the movement of the gases. And when it gets thickened up, or we lose surface area here, these sacs that we have lots and lots of them. If you look here, lots and lots of them. Look like alveoli actually means a sack of grapes. They look like a little bundle of grapes. They have a lot of surface area. If you think about people who get emphysema, or what's another one, not emphysema, maybe it is emphysema, where the air sacs break down. If you've ever seen pictures of holy lungs, where there's a lot of holes in the lungs, what's happening is that these air sacs are breaking down. They're supposed to be really thin, and they're supposed to have a lot of surface area, because the more surface area we have on a cell, the more possibilities we have for diffusion. The less surface area, the less diffusion. The thicker it is, the less diffusion. So if you've heard of inflammation of the lungs, lung cancers that essentially break down the alveoli, what it's doing is it's breaking down the surface area. And so when we don't have all these sacs, right through here, there's a surface area. Right through here, there's surface area. Right through here, there's surface area. So there's surface area right all along here, but there's also surface area all along here. In the cases of lung cancer, or where there's an inflammation of the lungs, a chronic inflammation, for example, introducing things into your body via smoking your lungs will have an immune reaction to, and will cause inflammation of the lungs. You lose all the surface area in here. And so you can only use this surface area. So the structure of the alveoli are specifically made to be very thin and have a lot of surface area. And when we lose that surface area, or we lose the thinness through getting pneumonia and water in our lungs, we reduce the movement of gases of carbon dioxide and oxygen. And that's why people with pneumonia struggle to breathe, is because they can't get the diffusion of the oxygen and the carbon dioxide. So remember that this is called complementarity, where the function of an organ, or excuse me, the function of an organ relies very much on the structure of the organ. If the structure gets disrupted, the function's going to get disrupted. Outside of alveoli and the cavarium here, what are other parts of the body that you can think of that are examples of complementarity? You guys, when I ask you this question, I'm not looking for right or wrong answers. I'm just looking for answers. And they can be really simple. Don't think too hard about this.
Your eyes, when they contract, the muscles in your eyes from light.
Right. I told you about my really fiery cat. No, I didn't tell you he was really fiery. I just told you he had a GI issue. So this little cat that it weighed 6.5 pounds in May, he's a little Maine Coon mix. Every once in a while, if we're in here and he jumps on my lap, I'll introduce him to you. But he gets really fired up really fast. What happens when you go into a fight or flight response with your eye dilation? Eye dilation, you get enlarged. Go ahead. Sorry, Josh, go ahead.
No, it enlarges.
It enlarges. Why does it do that?
To allow more sense to be gathered through your eyesight.
Yeah, allows more light in. So with my cat, when he gets mad, which, I can get him mad just because, and it's kind of fun to make him mad because he fires up really fast and then he comes down really fast too. But when he gets really mad, his eyes get all dilated. And I can see to the very back of his eye because the light reflects back from the back of his eye forward. It doesn't work the same for us. But that structure of the cat's eye allows them to see better in the dark than we can. Because the light in the back of the eye reflects back. If you've ever, here in Pennsylvania, I didn't have this issue when I lived out west as much as I have it here. Have you ever almost hit a raccoon on the road in the middle of the night? You guys are going to make...
Or a deer in headlights.
What?
Or a deer in headlights.
Deer in the headlights, yes. Have you ever seen how the light reflects back from their eyes?
Yes.
That wouldn't work so well for you. Probably, deer are closer to us, but a raccoon, a cat, a dog, they all see better at night because the light reflects back from their back of their eye and comes back out again. Their images aren't as crisp and aren't as smooth and distinct as our images are, but we don't see as well in the dark as my cats do. And it's all based on the structure of the back of their eye and how it's different from ours. What's another example?
Pain, if you get hurt, to reflex.
Yeah, Josh probably hasn't had this problem, but looking at Brooke here, Brooke, how often do you curl your hair?
Only when I'm going out.
Yeah, you do have long hair, but I'll bet you don't use the curling iron on it very often.
No.
Do you curl your hair, Brooke?
Yeah, but only for special occasions.
Very special occasions. I understand. I'll bet you Josh doesn't curl his hair for special occasions very often.
Very special occasions.
Brooke, I have a question for you. Have you ever grabbed the wrong end of the curling iron?
I'm a hairdresser too, so yeah, all the time.
Oh, wait, you've done this. How long do you have to think about it before you let it go and drop it?
Almost like an instant reaction.
Yeah,
Like a
you don't
second.
even have to think about it. When we talk about the brain and the spinal cord, that is something that we are going to talk about, where that pain response doesn't even involve your brain. It involves, yeah, it's just your spinal cord. It goes up to your spinal cord, and there's a muscle that comes, there's a nerve response that comes back and tells you to relax those muscles and let go of that curling iron. And then, after you've let go of that curling iron, you think, that really hurt, right? So that pain response, another one. I'm wondering if Josh has had an experience with this. I know we have more guys in this class, but Josh is the only face that I can see here.
Sorry.
Oh, you're okay. You're okay. I know we have more people in this class, but I can only see 4 faces here. Josh, have you ever picked something up, and when you pick it up, you immediately let go of it
Yeah.
because you went to pick it up and you didn't realize just how heavy it was?
Oh, no, I mean, sometimes, I mean, I guess, but more or less I was thinking about like picking something up and feeling like if there's like, I don't know, something on it that just wasn't pleasant to touch,
Yes,
and you're just like, what is that?
I understand that kind of thing. Another, I'm trying to think if that one, I don't know if that one really, it might be a pain response.
More of like it kind of like, what is that? I don't know. Like if you pick something up and something's underneath of it and you touch it and you're just like not ready for that.
Yeah, it shocks you. But you don't, that probably is, that's not as fast as a reflex to drop it when it's the hot end of a curling iron.
I don't know.
Because you actually have to think about what you've actually touched there. When it's a pain response, it doesn't take more than a second. If you have ever picked up a bucket that was full of water and realized it was a lot heavier than you thought it was, you go to pick up one of those handle weights, and no, I don't lift weights a lot, so I don't know the name of these weights. But you go to pick up one of those weights and it's too heavy. What's the first thing you do?
Go back down.
You drop it.
Yeah.
You drop it. Do you think about it before you drop it?
No.
No. No, you. Okay, Josh, do you think about it before you drop it?
Well, yeah, you don't want to drop it on something. It depends on where you want to
Well,
drop it.
you really hope you don't. How many of you have small children? How
Yes.
many of you have more than one small child?
Yes.
How often has that one small child went to pick up the other small child, and you're like maybe out on the pavement, and they go to pick up that small child just because it's funny, and you say, don't pick him up because he's probably too heavy. Esther, have you ever done that?
Yes, a couple of times.
Because they won't think about it, and they're going to realize they're too heavy, and they're going to drop them.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing when I go to pick up a weight that's too heavy. My muscles will actually relax before I pick up something that's going to tear my tendon off my muscle. That's a reflex that you don't even have to think about. And we will hopefully, I think when we talk about muscle tissue, we'll towards the very end of the semester, we'll talk about how that works. But these are all, like Josh was saying, these pain responses, these are all protective measures that you have because of how fast your nerve system works. When we talk about nerves after we talk about bones, we'll talk about why those neurons are so fast. and why signals move so fast. Let me think here. Should we start this? Bear with me, guys. I'm going to look just for a second here. Let's do two more slides here, and then we'll be done. How does one assess certain aspects of body structure and function? Inspection. You're looking at the body's appearance. If you want to see a presence of a rash, you want to see a really good sized bruise. I'll show you the really good sized bruise that I got right before the semester started. Do you see the bruise on my arm?
Yes.
I talked with my roommate about it. We were trying to take pictures of it this morning so that when I talk about the immune system with my next semester students, I can use that picture. Because the reason a bruise turns all the different colors of the rainbow is based on your immune system function. And that happened when I decided to run into a fence. I didn't mean to run into a fence, I fell into a fence. But how inspection is just looking at the body's appearance. You know, you have a big goose egg on the top of your Esther. One of your kids has a big goose egg on the top of their head. It's pretty obvious that they banged their head on something. Palpitation. Gently touching body surfaces with hands. Measuring the pulse rate. Measuring heart determination. If there's something going on in the peritoneal activity or the abdominal cavity, you'll see that doctors will palpitate the stomach and palpitate the GI tract to see if there's pain in there. This figure just showing two different parts of the body that you can measure the pulse. This is the dorsalis pedis. What does pedis mean?
Foot.
Foot. Dorsalis means the back of the foot. Believe it or not, the bottom of the foot, the side of your foot that you see, and we'll talk about this hopefully. The front of your foot that you look down on is actually the back of your foot. So dorsalis pedis is the artery that runs on the front of the foot or the back of the foot. Let me say this differently. I'm sorry. Dorsalis pedis, artery that runs on the back of the foot right here. So I'm going to try to teach you over this semester that anatomy and physiology is not all about having to memorize a lot of complicated words. Pedis means foot, dorsalis means back, artery that runs along the back of the foot. Actually, let's end right here. I'll start right here. I'll review this really quickly on Tuesday, and we will start on this. I would really prefer, remember for lab on Thursday, if you can't join us, I'm not going to dock you for it. I want you to join us. It'll make life easier for both you and me if there's problems, questions, or concerns. And when you're struggling with the lab activity, it's going to be a lot easier to do it together rather than you doing it all by yourself. And I'm going to work very hard to work out the kinks on Zoom so that we don't start 20 minutes late. Any questions or concerns that I can answer right now?
So as of right now, like just to clarify, is the only thing that we're working on is the labs?
On Thursday, yes.
Okay.
If you have questions about the lecture, we can talk about that too.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there any other homework that we might be able to, or things that we might be able to get ahead of before next week, before
You,
next Tuesday?
all of the smart book activities, you can do them right now. They should all be open to you right now. If you honestly wanted to, Josh, or anybody else, you could do all those activities between now and next week. They're all,
All,
yep, they should be all open.
but only the first one needs done by
Yeah,
next week.
yes,
But you can get ahead and do all of them.
yes,
Excellent.
you can do all of them. Another thing, let me get the quiz set up. Bear with me. I need to talk with the instructional specialist. I'm trying to see if I can't just copy it from one class to another class. And if I can't, give me about till this afternoon and I'll have it up there. If I have to remake it, I'll remake it. But give me until this afternoon. I have a training in about an hour. So it may take me a little bit, couple hours to get it done. What's another thing that you can get done between now?
And I'm sorry to interrupt again, but is that all stuff that we could do without having a printer or copier available to us? The only reason I asked, because I'm leave for vacation Thursday,
So
right after our class.
the smart
The reason
book,
I asked,
I'm sorry, Josh, go ahead.
like, the reason I asked if we needed a printer or scanner or anything like that over the weekend is because I'm away and I don't know if I have to take my printer with me on vacation.
No, the smart book activities are all online.
Excellent.
How about the worksheet? Is that part of homework or?
It is not a homework. It is essentially your review worksheet, your review study guide for chapter 1.
The smart book.
The smart book is a reading activity and answer questions. That's not the study guide.
I was using the worksheet to fill out like while you were talking about the PowerPoint.
That's the way I want you to use that.
Okay.
Yes. The smart book is essentially promoting you to read the book and answer some related questions.
Okay. But if we can print out everything that you have listed here under like the bio chapter, and that's how we're going to go through class from now on, is you're going to be going through your slideshow functions and then we can take notes on this as we're going.
Yes.
If we have it all printed out for us.
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I have a question.
Go ahead.
So since we understand that the air sacs of the lungs only permit the movement of oxygen and carbon dioxide, so what happens if the lungs end up, as in the lungs is filled with water?
If they fill up with water, what is going to happen to the ability for things to diffuse?
I understand that you might not be able to breathe well.
Why can't they breathe well? If this fills up with water, how well do things move through if you think back, when you talked about diffusion in your earlier biology classes, what happens as if I have something that's moving through here, I have a wall that's this thick, and I have something that needs to diffuse through and come through the other side. Is it going to take it longer to diffuse through something this thick, or is it going to take it longer to diffuse through something that's this thick? Let me do something different here. I have a piece of paper like this, very, very thin piece of paper, just this edge right here. It's gonna go through and come through the other side. How is the diffusion through this piece of paper? Is it going to be fast through this paper, or is it going to be faster through going through the width of this book?
The paper.
Paper.
Paper. Why is it going to be faster through the paper?
I think because
It's thinner.
yeah.
It's a lot thinner. I mean, this is actually your AMP. This is a hard copy of your AMP book.
What does the front look like?
What?
What does the front look like? Yep.
Okay. So how many pages are in this book? This has. I'm just looking at the index here. Come on. Over 1,000 pieces. The more water you get in your lungs, the thicker that layer becomes. So what you're doing when you get pneumonia is you go from walls this thin of those stack to walls this thick.
Okay.
That's why it becomes a lot harder for you to breathe, because breathing is really about diffusion.
That's true.
And if it can't diffuse through, you can't breathe.
So the walls
So
thicken when
could that
they.
result to the lungs collapsing?
That's a little different. It's a little different. When the lungs are collapsing, that's a little different. Can we hold off on that question for right now, even though that's a great question? That is a good question. Hold on to it. And maybe, you know what, if we get a chance in lab, let me talk to you about that one then.
Okay.
Brooke, what was your question?
So the lungs thicken when they're not receiving oxygen and the carbon dioxide, or when like it's not moving through. Did that make sense?
Yes. That's a potential. It's not always the case. It can be
So
a lot of different things.
So different causes it to thicken when it's like blocking.
Well, or you can lose surface area. Remember how I talked about how you get that breakdown of all this little tissue in here? And so you only have the surface area on the outside. You don't have all this little surface area that allows you for even more diffusion.
So it almost like constricts it from flowing through?
That can happen too.
So it just depends on what the situation is that
Right.
changes. Okay.
Right. You guys, I hope you enjoyed this. It may be a complicated class. It may be a difficult class, but I honestly think anatomy and physiology is cool. It's just awesome with all the stuff out there, and also how little we know about it. So I'll see you guys on Thursday. So, big dog.
Yeah, sorry.
Was there another question?
Yes, please.
Oh.
Regarding the materials to use for the class, should we go ahead and order for the 9th edition?
Yes, get at least the ebook. Get the electronic book.
Okay, just the electronic book. Okay.
Just the electronic book.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. You guys have a good morning, okay? Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.
You too.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
You're welcome.